do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. This then is how. This then is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debt as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one.
Someone read from 14 to 23. 14 to 20.
For if you forgive others for their transgressions, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others, then your Father will not forgive your transgressions. Whenever you fast, do not put on a gloomy face as the hypocrites do, for they neglect their appearance so that they will be noticed by men when they are fasting. Truly I say to you, they will have their reward in full. But you, when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, so that your fasting will not be noticed by men, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in or steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is clear, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be filled with darkness. If then the light that is in you is darkness, how great is the darkness?
Somebody read 24 to 34.
No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Therefore, I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air, for they neither sow, nor reap, nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not more value than they? Which of you, by worrying, can add 1 cubit to his stature? So why do you worry about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. And yet I say to you that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Now if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? Therefore do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For all these things the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father knows that you need all these things. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own thing. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble.
All right, page 62 in the book. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus set forth high standards for personal piety. He warned people not to make a show of their good deeds, otherwise no reward will be forthcoming for their heavenly Father, Matthew 6:1. If a person were to blow a trumpet before himself when he made a charitable gift, as some of the hypocrites were doing, people would know that he made the gift. But that is all the reward he will get, Matthew 6:2, Jesus said. When you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Can someone give me a parable or a story concerning Matthew 6:1 and 2? The story starts with the city with a J. Piety means reverence for God. So if it's personal piety means personal reverence for God. A man went down to Jericho, and what happened to him? He got jacked up, right? The guy that helped him, did he tell the innkeeper to tell the man who he was and what he did for him? What he did in secret, didn't he? As far as the man was concerned, right? Did he blow a trumpet? Does the Bible switch the story around and tell us that the guy stood up on a mountain and said, hey, look, this is what I did today? He took care of the guy. If the guy costs you anything more, when I come back by here, charge it to my account and I'll pay you. Personal piety, reverence for God. When you do things, God is saying what? When you do good things, to what?
Keep it
Don't make
quiet.
the announcement, keep it quiet. Take care of people if you're going to take care of people. Keep it on the down low. And when you do that, why does Jesus say do that? God will do what for you?
He'll reward.
How do you think God will reward us when we do things like that, when we do good? What are some of the ways you think God will reward the person that's doing the good deed?
Blessing us.
Hmm?
By blessing us.
Okay, what kind of blessings, what are some of the blessings you think people like the Good Samaritan receive?
Nice to catch a financial blessing. You help them with finance. Wouldn't hurt.
Right off the bat, right? Didn't it cost the Samaritan money to do that? He had to have had something, his reputation second, for him to pay for something and say, if there's need, when I get back here, I'll pay for it. So finances definitely is one of the things that God is going to bless you with. He's going to bless you with the know-it-all, and the monetary needs to do his work for people. What's that, Erica?
I was gonna say, like favor and honor.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, like God will give us favor among people to continue to do good work. And then even in this example, it was this man's honorable character that allowed the innkeeper to trust his word and believe that if there were additional financial requirements that he would come back and pay them.
Yep.
So honor builds on honor.
Rod?
I mean, your health got to be in place. Because the feel good to go out and do things that's unreasonable, first of all. And they can continue to do the work. And you got to have good health. We're always praying for our good health to feel good. When we're sick, we're down, we're hurting. Mm-hmm.
Who gets the glory when good things are done? If you be quiet. God does. God gets the glory. I'm just an instrument. God gets the glory. Who wants the glory? God does. God wants the glory. He wants people to know that he is a giver of good things. All good things come from him, right? That's what the scriptures say. And it makes God feel good to know that people know that he's a good giver, that he is the one that comes through in a clinch. He's the one that comes through in finances and medical problems and all those things because he is good. God let the rain fall on who?
Just and unjust.
Just and the unjust. It is because of God that the whole world turns, right? Not just the Christian world, but the whole world turns. That's a blessing. Whether we think of it that way, it is a blessing for everybody to get up in the morning because it's God's will that they do so. And God takes care of the birds and the bees, the flowers and the trees, and the moon up above. That's God. All good things come from you.
Giving, I look at it this way. He said, ask and you shall receive. But when you you're a faithful servant of the Lord, and you ask, he put it in other people's thoughts to give what you need. It is like, okay, if I ask him for, I just speak to my own experience. You need a house. And you pray about it. You sincerely praying about the situation. God will put it in the person's heart, or all the channels you have to go through, He will open that door that you would be able to receive that gift from Him. And I believe that when we give Him something, we shouldn't be looking to blow the trumpet, or we did this and we did that and whatever. It is God. God bless me with something, I bless somebody else with it. And I will tell you the first time as a Christian that I acknowledged that is when I was in Bethpage congregation. The preacher wife, she want, well, in the ladies group we spoke about it, what she really need and so on and so on. Was this special thing she wanted. And the Sunday she came and she said, ladies, guess what? I got it. Some friend of hers called her and said, Nancy, I have this for you. And she was explaining it. Somebody gave it to that person, and the person said her name came to her thought, and she decided to give it to Nancy. And this is what Nancy wanted. And Nancy said, this is how God worked in our life. Before that, things, things just, as a babe in Christ, and I didn't fully understand how God worked in our life. But after that incident in Bethpage congregation, I got to the knowledge and understanding how Christ worked in our life. If I ask for something, okay, Erica wouldn't know what I need, but God will put it in her heart, and she will come to me, Sister Beulah, I have this for you. And this is how God works in our life. Yeah. And it's not for us to blow a trumpet and say, I did this and I did that, or I gave, or whatever it is. God is the one that provides. God is the one that gives. All glorification goes to God. And by we keeping our mouth shut and not taking that glory for ourselves, it helps us to grow and for Him to bless us more. And giving to me is a big deal for me. I just like to give. And when you're giving, give it a clean heart. Don't have doubts. And don't give people things that you don't want. This is how I look at it, at my spiritual life and giving. I know it.
Jesus is making some practical teachings here of God and what He wants, how He wants people to change their perspective on their fellow man. And piety is just one thing in your reverence and my reverence to God, to understand what God, how God functions and how He thinks with your neighbor, with people that are closest to you, with people that you run into. The world is cold and is hard. And the majority of the people in the world just move through life every single day, stepping on people, pushing people, moving people out of the way for a greater good. And the establishment itself, whatever that establishment is, sets the standard. And even on the religious realm, Jesus is saying, don't be like that. Have reverence from God. Don't be like them. Don't show off. Don't step on people. Don't. You know what I'm saying? Just do the right thing when it comes down to humanity. Because in doing that, it all gets pointed to God. All good things that we do every single day get pointed to the source that gives good things from above. And it's not you. Don't show it off. It's not you. Keep you out of the way. And it's safe these days for you not to be blowing a trumpet anyway, because the way people rip people off these days, you just made yourself a target, Kurt.
Yeah, I think this is like really powerful because this is Jesus talking, and it's a very practical teaching because it says in the NIV, when you give to the needy, right? So obviously, like this is about like helping somebody that needs help, that has a need. And when the guy who got jacked up and needed the Good Samaritan's help, he had a need. And many times when you have a need, it can be embarrassing. You know, that guy on the road was probably embarrassed, you know, that somebody had to come and help him out. You know, so practically, right, let's take the Bible out of it. Practically, like if you help somebody, that person who got help probably doesn't want to hear how much you helped them. You know what I mean? And I think that if that person who the Good Samaritan helped, like knew who helped him and had the means to like, you know, reimburse them, like he probably would have found him and did that. So I think it's just really interesting that Jesus here is teaching us as Christians how we should behave when we come across somebody in an embarrassing situation that has a need, and not looking for retribution from that person, because the Lord is the ultimate returner of that gift. So I think that that's powerful.
The guy that was on his road to Jericho, what type of area was that in the first place? It was risky, wasn't it? And did the guy have money? Did he have resources? Yes. He got robbed, right? He got beat up and robbed, right? So everything he had, he lost, plus he got hurt in the process, right? 3 people came along, didn't do anything. The Samaritan came along, who the 3 people that came along didn't like. He was one that helped, and he helped out. Some people, when they give, don't they want people to know it?
Yeah, they do.
You know what I'm saying? Some people that are very, very wealthy, they want people to know that they gave millions of dollars to a particular something. If it's, I don't know, organization, boys club, girls club, whatever, you name it. They want people to know it. Don't the IRS reward you for charitable gifts? I think the reason why they cut back on that this year is because people was holding off gifts for a couple of years and then turning in a lot of receipts so they can get more back. So Jesus said that the hypocrites was doing what? With their charitable gifts. Letting everybody know it, right? So it came down to what? Who was the benefactor? Because Jesus said that their reward is where? Self-centeredness gets a reward, don't it?
Always right there. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If that's the type of person you are, everybody's, ooh, Mr. Stanley's coming in. Every time he comes, he brings a check. You know what I'm saying? So you getting your reward, somebody's patting you on the back. But who is not being glorified? God. Where did you get your resources from? God. There are some of us, brothers and sisters, that have been benefactors of something that 2 or 3 generations ago did, and God bless. There are some families who just are benefactors because great-great-grandma or grandpa did something. And look at the name Edison. Look at the name Edison. Look at the name at one time in the 70s and the 80s, Vanderbilt. Look at the names that we have where greats started something, came out of the Depression, made wealth, and their children and their children's children are benefactors of that. Look at foundations. People who pour money into foundations, where millions of dollars are in a foundation, where foundations are now being charitable to people who are in need. I mean, it is just amazing how, when you look at what Jesus is saying and what everyday life is, some people want the name on the side of the building. Some people want you to know that they are that foundation, that association, that entity. They want things named after them. They want to cut the ribbon, and they want to shake people's hands, and they want the press to be there. That's not the way Jesus wants us to act. With that comes a sense of arrogance and self-centeredness. Because after all, you get the best seats. You get the tickets first. And when you go to those places, you get to sit in the front row. So Jesus said, you're getting your reward. But the reward that you should be seeking is the eternal award with God, who got glorified in your piety, your own personal piety, reverence from God. And if we can just step back out of the picture like Jesus is teaching them, where you do good, and when you do good, you please God. Think about that. Your charitable deeds may be in secret. You may do something for someone and nobody never know you did it. And it can be so simple to you and so routine with you in giving. Like Beulah says she liked to give, that 2 years, 3 years, maybe 5 years down the road, you'll bump into somebody that you know personally that you were the financial reason why that person is where they are. You know that. Nobody else knows that. The person that's sitting across from the table don't know that you paid for them to have a year at camp, or paid for them with their first semester of books, that it was anonymous. And the person that gave you that gift said, I was told not to reveal the source. You see that on movies, right? Not to reveal the source. And you can run into that person and never know that was a person that did that. And that's what Jesus wants. Jesus wants the good deed to be thought of by God. Beulah?
When I was in New York, I used to do a lot of crochet, and I made a beautiful chair back. And I gave it to this individual. And years after, this person invited me to her house. So when I went there, I saw it. But what she did, she covered it. She put the chair back, the crochet, and then they covered it in plastic on the chair back, so the chair wouldn't get dirty. And I looked at, oh my God, it is a beautiful piece. So she looked at me. She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Wait a minute, I love that piece." She said, "Come on." I said, "What? You give it to me." I said, "Well, I couldn't remember." And this is you do a lot of crochet, a lot of whatever. And the thing is this, when you do, I believe in this, when you do a good for a person, it could be what? You have no right to go and tell everybody, oh, I did this, and I did that, and I did. You glorify yourself. Because what you do in secret, God knows. What you do open, He knows. And we have to get to the knowledge and understanding that He has the last say. He is the judge of everything. We can't hide. Where we could go to hide from Him, we can't go nowhere to hide from Him. He knows everything. So if we do good, He knows. We don't have to talk and say we did this and we did that. If we did bad in secret also, He knows. So we can't hide from God. He is the one who justifies everything. He's the one who blesses us. He's the one we have to please.
What is that day? I think we did it, where I don't know what they call it. You do kind to someone, like if you're in the line buying food or something, or Dunkin' Donuts, you pay for it. Is that a day?
Pay it forward.
Pay it forward, right? And you pull off because you're not looking back to see what if you're in the fast food line, you trying to get out of there. But we pulled off one time and did that. Donna had reminded me to do that when we pulled off. The guy looked down out his window when we was going up the street, and he smiled and he waved. To pay him forward. It's just jump starting that day. That day, it was very nice if everybody did it that day, or the majority of people did it, but it felt good to do it. And you just pull off knowing that you did that for the person behind you. Erica?
Just to build on what Sister Beulah was saying, when it talks about your left hand not knowing what your right hand is doing, it's almost humanly impossible for our left and right hand to do two separate things, right? Like if I have my left hand in my Bible, I know it's in my Bible, my right hand's holding my pen. The point is, like, we should be giving to, like Sister Beulah used in her example, to the point where you forget. That's like the deeper implication of your left hand not knowing what your right hand is doing, because it should be so mindless that you're giving on that level where you're not keeping score. And that ties to me into 1 Corinthians chapter 13, because love keeps what? No record of wrong. But sometimes love doesn't keep a record of good either. It's just loving.
Yeah.
It's just supposed to be loving. And for Jesus to give such a deep teaching, this is in the same context of a couple weeks ago, chapter 5. These are everyday people that are standing around listening to him talk. So it had to be so mind-blowing for them as a mixture of people, just like us, right? Some people high income, some people low income, some people middle income. And they're all listening to him say this, and he's not qualifying the statement by our economic standing. He's just saying that all of us should be doing this. And I just personally, I want to get to the point of giving where I'm not keeping a record of the good. Because no matter what the score is, God has been so good to me that I can't ever get to a number that's good enough, period. So it's like, why do we even think that by, keeping that list, we're checking it twice? That really is about self-righteousness. We cannot be good enough for God. We can't be good enough for each other.
I was dropping gas at the Shell gas station up on Main Street in Bridgeport one night, and I told some of y'all the story. And this guy, he just appeared. I'm standing out there just bored to death watching the gas go through the holes into the ground. And I'm just standing here just doing nothing. And this guy appeared and he said, "Do you have any food?" Now I had snacks, but that wasn't food. I said, "No." I said, "But you can go inside and get whatever you want and tell the attendant I'll pay for it." And he said, "Thank you." He was not dirty. He wasn't raggy and tattered and torn. He went inside. I watched him go inside, and then I started doing what I was doing because the tank was empty and out. I went inside with the paperwork. I was looking for the guy inside. I said to the attendant, I said, "Did the guy come in here and say that the driver said for him to have anything he want?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, how much is my bill?" He said, $11. And so I ran outside to the sidewalk to look down, left, and look right, and I didn't see him. I said, "There's no way in the world this guy could have disappeared that fast," because Main Street right there is a straightaway or across the street where you can go up to Madison. I said, "Where is this guy?" The Bible says things about entertaining angels unaware. There was nothing about this guy, and I've given to plenty people and still do, that look like I need to give to them. This was not that guy. He was not that guy. There was nothing strange about him in terms of, how you prejudge people because if they look a certain way, you do, in the back of your mind, you say, "Man, if I give this guy stuff, I don't know what he's going to do with it," that kind of thing. This was not that guy. And I ran out. I literally ran out the store to see if I can find this guy. I couldn't find him. I've given to people where I've taken them inside and they took me up in Patterson, New Jersey. This guy was outside and he was asking people for something to eat. He said, I just want something to eat. That's all he said. I said, come inside. And I sat down with him and talked with him about Jesus and everything, and he listened, and he was hungry up a storm. He wore that food out. He got a breakfast sandwich. I told him go back and get a donut. He got a coffee, a regular. I said, are you full? He said, can I get some more? I said, you can have whatever you want to have, as long as I'm sitting here. I said, I'm not going to stay here, but, have what you want to have. And he went and got another donut. And he said, thank you so much. He said, I know people look at people who ask for things all the time a certain way, but I was really hungry today. He said, I was really hungry today. I said, well, you're full now. I said, maybe I'll see you tomorrow if I have this this shop around the corner to do. And I didn't see him the rest of the week. But I thank God that, because there are sometimes when you do things for people, it comes back tenfold to you right then and there. Like that was a case that I can tell you that he was really, really hungry. And the guy that got $11 worth of food, that was a lot of food. You know what I'm saying? I didn't see him no more, but that was a lot of food. And he probably was hungry. But I had some chips or something in the truck. I wasn't going to give that to him. Just told him to get what you want to get. Hoping that, he would get something of substance where he can eat. But again, personal piety. Jesus is trying to get people to see God is the Father. He should be the one glorified. David?
So see, this is still a Sermon on the Mount, and Jesus is talking. And before last week it was, I think we did study the Beatitudes. And this is very similar to the Beatitude. And the issue is righteousness, isn't it? Blessed are the righteous, I guess you might say. And what is righteousness but doing what we've been talking about? Giving charity to the guy in the road. Let's see what are the events in here. Yeah, prayer, the amount of prayer, the fasting, praying in public. So those are the things. This is how to do them. The right way and the wrong way to do those things. To be blessed by God. This is your daily life, though. Your daily relationship with God is doing this kind of behavior. This is what God wants you to do. This is how you communicate.
Jesus is doing some name calling. Look what he says here. Jesus taught that a person should not make a show of praying. He warned his followers not to be like the hypocrites. That's name calling. Who love to pray. Then he defined their hypocrisy. He said, who love to pray in the synagogues and while standing on the street corner, then showing people that they were praying. Jesus said, verily I tell you, they have their reward. Jesus is trying to get people to see this is the proper way of doing things. Don't get caught up in that man-made thing. Don't get caught up in that. This is the proper way of your personal piety to God. Your everyday responsibility to God is not to be self-centered. Don't do that. I've had enough of that. We've had enough of that. Don't do the way they do things. Don't dress like that. Don't act like that. Don't perform like that, because that has its own reward. And we have people who are like that religiously, but they have their reward. Jesus is telling you they're going to have their reward, but it's not going to be the eternal.
So the righteous behavior and the unrighteous behavior.
Yeah, he makes that perfectly clear that there is a way to do things, but don't do it like they're doing it, because that's hypocrisy. They're getting their reward. They're making a lot of money. They're getting a lot of attention. They look good. They make it sound good. They're getting their reward, but they're not going to have eternity. But their attitude, the hypocrisy that they have in their personal relationship with God is not there, because they're not God-like. They don't act like God. See, God don't act like that. So he's trying to get people to see God is not showy. He already showed it. You understand what I'm saying? He's the creator. He don't have to repeat that. You're not going to outdo God. I say all the time to the atheists, get your own dirt. If you're going to start disclaiming what God has done, you got to go outside of what God has done and then tell me God don't exist. Don't try to base God's existence or lack of existence on what you see, because you can't do that. He is the creator. Like you said, he doesn't tempt people. What would God have to tempt you with that he doesn't already own? That's why it didn't work with Satan. He owns what Satan already was trying to tempt him with. That is not a temptation to Jesus. You see, so don't do like the establishment. Don't be like those people. They're going to get what is due them, and they're going to get it now. They're already getting their benefactors of that behavior. But don't you be like that. Everyday life and everyday living is not like that in Christianity. The goodness comes from God. Give him the glory. Let him get that. Don't be a hypocrite. Don't do these things. Why in the world would you run out there in the street and show off? Why? Who's getting the attention? You are. Don't. Did Jesus do that? No. So just imagine what he's teaching on the Sermon on the Mount, and then chapter 6, chapter 7, and chapter 8. Man, Pharisees, boy, he said, man, I gotta take this guy out. Because he's talking about the establishment, the religious establishment, where people went there. And he's telling you, don't be like them. Be like God. And folks are trying to figure out, well, what is God like? He's saying it now. I'm telling you what they do. Don't do what they do. Do what they say, but not what they do. Erica?
Which I'm sure had to be very hard, because in the social order of things, the Pharisees and the elite of the synagogue would have naturally been the people that common people wanted to be. Like, you naturally want to be like people in power, or people who seem to have power, right? And Jesus is taking that whole concept and reversing it, talking to everyday people. So even us as Christians, right? Like, we always, I feel, have to temper ourselves to not be like people in the world. You know, not to look and be like, wow, I want to be like Beyonce. I want to be famous. I want to be like the president. Because Jesus is saying, you should not want to be like those people because they're looking for glory. You should instead, and even in the later books in the New Testament, when it's talking about like being appreciative you're poor, because that will keep you closer to God than being the wealthy person. So it's not only on the street corner, but these are people that are praying in the synagogue. So imagine being the common person that went to the synagogue, and Jesus is now telling you not to want to be like that person who lords over you, has power over you, who has social power, who has religious power. That had to be like kind of wild when you think about it, because their natural desires would have been to get out of their circumstance.
Right.
And Jesus is saying, blessed is your circumstance. Blessed are you as you are.
I'm in the circumstance.
That's hard.
Yeah.
You know,
What was the temple for? What was the temple originally for? What did David have in mind for the temple? To make a house of what? A house for God.
Yeah.
Right? That was its conception. Solomon went and took it to the next level and made this grand. God even had to be in the architect of that, because you know how man is. This grand piece of work. And God told David that I can't be boxed in. Man can't take his hands and make something for me, because I'm God. I'm in the hearts and minds of people. And they did it anyway. So when the needy and the poor came to the temple, weren't there things that they should bring? Poor people was responsible to bring what kind of sacrifice?
2 doves.
2 doves and what?
2 doves.
Right? For the poor people. Just imagine what the middle class or the upper class brought. And then how do you think they was treated? Remember in Corinth during the Lord's Supper? Who ate first?
Yeah.
The rich people did. You see what I'm saying? It's a chronic problem that we all go through. I mean, the guy, Jesus was talking about the guy with the ring, the wealth, the guy that comes in and got money. The first thing you do is what?
Sit him in front.
Get him up front. Get him up front. Jesus don't think that way. God don't think that way. We all are what? One. I can't elevate what God doesn't elevate. God elevated his son by putting him on the cross. So we have to think of it that way. We have to think the way God thinks. God doesn't think the way man thinks. And again, what are you going to show off to God when he is the creator of all of that? He said, I give what? Wealth. God said that. God gives wealth. David, and then viewer.
So poor people, like ordinary people, were subservient to everything around them. But God turned that all around. They're not. They get to choose. Their aim is to do what God wants. And they're starting to understand that from the Beatitudes, how they act. They're not subservient to all. Right? They still have to honor the rules and regulations. But there's something above all these other people.
In Acts chapter 2,
Over them.
Acts chapter 3, Acts chapter 4, and Acts chapter 5, they all did what? It started in Acts chapter 2, verse 46. They all did what? This teaching calls Christians to do what after baptism? All became what? They took all that they had and did what? Distributed and shared it so everybody can be what, David? One. See? There was no rich Christian. There was no poor Christian. There was no middle class Christian. They all had what? One. They all met one another's necessity. So the teachings of Jesus came out in his new covenant. And what did the brothers and sisters do? They all acted upon that teaching. And what did that do to the church? That made the church what? In its perspective, what did that make the church with you being in the church? You seeing another brother and sister in Christ in the first century, how did you view them? Did you view them as a poor Christian? You viewed them as your what? Brother and sister in what? In Christ, where there is no Jew, Greek, slave, free. See, Philemon, except Onesimus back because you owe me. You owe me. Your life, the one that you have right now, is because of me. Treat him the same way you would treat me. And guess what? Save a room for me. I'm going to come and see if it worked. See, that's Christianity. That's what he was talking about. That's what Jesus was talking about. That day is going to come where you're going to have to act out these words, not just hear them. You're hearing them now, but my power is going to make you display these words. See? So don't be like that. Now, we're not talking about being disrespectful to anyone. Don't want to get Jesus' teachings wrong. You have to, what? Timothy, Peter said we got to be what to governors and got to pray for them, right? Pray for them. God put people in place for the evildoers. But in terms of godliness, look at the next person as worth and value. That's worth and value. That's a valuable person right now. No matter what their circumstances are, that's a valuable person there. That's a valuable person. I was talking with Erica today at lunch, and I made a point because it was so profound to me when I really thought about it. Paul, when he was Saul, was a what? He was a murderer, right? Stephen and Philip was who? First of all, they was friends. But what else were Stephen and Philip? The table waiters. They were servants, right? Who was killed? Stephen. Jesus said when the woman was brought to him in adultery, he who has the first stone, he who is without sin, cast the first stone. Who cast the stone at Stephen?
all the
Saul of who? Tarsus. They brought the clothes to who?
song.
And dropped them where? To validate him. He went to Philip, the evangelist's house, who was a table server, and had dinner. What do you think that conversation was like? Remember Ananias said to Jesus, hold up, wait a minute. This guy, I think we better leave him blind. Because if he starts seeing, remember the last time I checked, he was the one that was killing us. You want me to do what? Imagine those kind of conversations with the Paul that they knew was Saul. Barnabas had to get him out of there for 3 years. Imagine what it was like to run into Paul, who was Saul, where he wanted nothing from you now. He was one of you. And he showed it. Everything he had, Christians had. He gave his life. They cried at Ephesus at the seashore for a man that years before they cried because of. See? That's the establishment, and that's the personal piety that Jesus is teaching here in these stories. Look there. But when you pray, go inside your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father who's seen what is done in secret will reward you. How many of y'all got a prayer room? I got a prayer room. I got a prayer room. There's a place where I go in my house where I pray. You know, I shut everything out. It is the quietest time for me. It's the bathroom. Sometimes I go to the bathroom, I do nothing but pray. I just go in the bathroom and pray. Because it's the only place where Coco won't bother me. She'll sit outside and just wait on me looking up at the door. She'll follow me in any other room. It's the most peaceful place for me personally. Some of you got a closet, some of you is in a car, some of you is in the laundry room, all those things. Go somewhere, take your time, unwind, let it all hang out and talk to God. So God can reward your gifts, your blessings openly. You know when God is working in your life. You know when God said yes, just like you know when God says no when you pray. God says no to your prayer and you know it. You know when he's saying no. Do you get that? No. That's a no. And that very well could be not right now. This is not the season for you. I'm going to give you that, but I can't give it to you now because you will forsake me. You know when God is telling you yes. Don't your circumstances get better? Yeah. Sometimes your circumstances get better right away, depending on the impact of the prayer. God has to move sometimes in our lives as soon as we come out of the closet. And then there are times when God says yes to prayers, but it's a process that he allows us to go through so we can understand the power of that prayer. That's Jesus. That's just the way he works. And we have to be in tune with God to understand that, where these things make sense. These kind of things make sense. Because there's a list that you have when you go in your prayer room. You start, you pray, you do all these things, and bam. And he's going to talk about that. I'm going to stop now, but he's going to talk about that in the model prayer, the prayer what they call the model prayer. And he's trying to get people to see when they heard him, when the disciples heard him pray, teach us how to pray. We don't pray like that. I pray for bait. I pray for I pray for the current. I pray for fish. I pray, but wait a minute, time out. What did you say just then? I was like, teach us how to pray. I'm always asking God for something. Your prayers sound different than mine. Teach us how to pray like that so I can feel like that. When you got through praying, I see the look on your face. Teach us how to pray like that. Sometimes we go to God with a big giant list, don't we? It's just a list of what we want. And sometimes I know he's amused a lot with us. Can you move that out of the way and just talk to me? First, can you just say hello? Here I am. I got you up this morning. Thank me for that. Can we just start with the you and me prayer first? I got that. I already know that, but can you just talk to me? And I got that. It's coming. But what about you and I this morning? But what about you and I after that announcement that you got. I was listening to this song, and this guy had got some bad news from the doctor. And the doctor said it's all I can do. And he thought about the devastating news that he had gotten. I guess it was cancer or something like that. And he said, well, wait a minute. I didn't pray. I didn't talk to God about this news. And he said, I can only remember what God has done for me the last time the doctor said something. Just forgot. I got to talk to God. He said, so he turned around to the wall. When the doctor left out, he turned around into the wall and he prayed to the wall. He just prayed at the wall and talked to God about what he just heard. See? It's amazing. It's amazing. That's all Jesus is doing, is trying to keep it simple. We the one that make it so tight out, like it's some big deal. It's not. It's not a big deal. God is it's no way in the world God would have sent his son to miss the mark of sin, where we don't get it. God is not complex with human beings. Our DNA comes from God. God didn't create us to be robots. He could have very well done that. We could have been just yes people. He created us in his own image to have a relationship with him, so we can understand God. Just like Jesus showed God in the flesh, we can understand God. That's all God is asking us to do. All right? Any final comments? Did you y'all didn't get the prayer? Well,